what is the experience being able to really not need a therapist and to be able to recover and enter the world again in a way without probably that next therapy appointment?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's really, like you said, scary, right? So we kind of process that fear a little bit. I think the other piece of it is that we talk about that even though we're breaking up or we're not going to do therapy together anymore, doesn't mean that we're still not a resource. Doesn't mean that I might not call and check in 30 days and say, hey, are you doing okay still? What's been going on? How are things going? And it's not to say that they can't come back and say, you know, I'm not ready. I thought I was, and I tried.
Hi, and welcome back to Reach for Wellness. This is the show where we ask people how they reach for wellness and learn more about their mental health journey. My name is Vanessa Alarcon, and I'm a licensed addictions counselor and clinical social worker, and I'm a program manager here at Community Reach Center. Today we have Mike Marsico on the show. Mike is a licensed clinical social worker and our vice president for clinical services. Mike, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Well, Mike, tell us a bit more of what that role means at Community Reach Center. What do you do?
What do I do? I mean, that's a very loaded question. From day to day, I support the staff. I work in contracting, constantly looking at ways to improve how we deliver services, but also how can I support the individuals that are getting services through Community Reach Center. So constantly trying to just develop new and interesting ways to provide services.
Well, Mike, I will tell you from hearing that, that just sounds like a lot of different hats all at once.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, that's great. And Mike, you've been with us for the last 2 years, I believe.
Yep, a little over 2 years this past November.
Awesome, Mike. Well, in this show, we really talk about how individuals reach for wellness, and we've talked to staff over this last season about what that means for them. And it is February, so we're in a season where relationships tend to be at the center. So I'm curious to you, in the context of relationships, how have relationships helped you reach for wellness?
Yeah, I mean, I've always kind of led into having a good support system to be able to get through grad school, as a lot of us have gone through over the years. I've always looked at to relationships that I've had with animals and kind of being able to have them as a sounding board when I'm frustrated.
Oh, that's a good idea.
Because they kind of give the unedited version of they're just going to lay there and listen to you, and it's really nice. But I look at relationships, also my relationships with my own wellness, relationships with my activities and hobbies and different things. So I look at relationships kind of as a holistic view of how I kind of travel through life.
Oh, that's interesting. So not just like here, person or animal that I relate to, but also what is my relationship to activities and to hobbies.
Yeah.
Oh, that's great. Well, I guess I want to rewind to the pet thing. So do you have a pet?
I do have a pet, yes.
Okay, so
I have a pit bull named Smalls.
a pit bull named Smalls.
I do, yeah.
That sounds like such a tender name for like a pit bull.
He is an interesting guy. He's fun. He's goofy.
Oh,
so
I love that.
Fits his name.
So through a relationship with pets, through or just animals in general for an unedited view, and then you just mentioned other relationships to think. So if someone's listening to this and they're like, I wonder what my relationship to like a hobby or an activity is, how would you describe that?
Yeah, so I mean, I'm as a lot of folks around Community Reach Center know, I'm a pretty avid golfer, and I would say that my relationship with golf is love-hate. So there's days I just love it no matter how bad I'm playing, and there's days that I hate it no matter how good I'm playing. And it's one of those interesting things of like, how do I balance out the love-hate relationship, and how do I use it to be my own kind of release and my own wellness?
I have not really dabbled much in golf, but everything I've heard is it definitely takes time to really get a good swing.
Been at it a long time. Still working on that good swing, but it's more than just that. It's being out in nature. Recently, I was in Utah, and I had the opportunity to play a couple fun courses. But the pictures I was able to take and the nature that I was kind of involved in was really cool. One of the courses had all lava rock, which was really interesting. Never actually seen lava rock up close and personal person. So that was a lot of fun to kind of experience that. So you also, as much as golf is not in nature, you are in nature with it. And definitely depending on how you play, sometimes you're a little deeper in nature looking for your balls. So sometimes that happens. But I kind of see it as also as a very personal thing, because golf can be a team sport, but it's really how well am I playing, and what am I doing to either clear my mind or to focus on the game, or what am I doing to stress relief with it. So I also like it because it's really just centered around me and what I'm doing, so I can kind of focus on myself and my own wellness, or my own journey into the sport, or just thinking about things. Sometimes it's nice just to walk the course, and it's just nice to be out there. So.
Well, and you've mentioned something other guests have mentioned, Mike, which is usually one activity for wellness helps in so many different areas of wellness. Like when you mentioned that holistic view, that's what it makes me think of, because golf then touches into just all these different things at once. Yeah, that's great. So there's the love-hate relationship to some activities, maybe a love-love out there of an activity.
There's, I would say walking my dog's the love-love.
Got it.
So like for me, it's something I look forward to. Now that we're in the shorter days and colder nights, not so much evening walks, but a lot of morning walks and weekend walks with my dog and with my daughter and with my wife. And we really enjoy it. I mean, there's a love there, so that's been a lot of fun. But even just getting out there and walking by myself sometimes, just clearing my own head. So there are things I like to do that don't have the love-hate relationship.
I don't want to say punishment, but the growth.
A little bit, yeah. There's growth, yeah. Growth is a good way to put it, yeah.
So I have to touch on your career as a social worker, because social worker, relationship, people. Sure. Give me the brief summary of how you landed in social work and how this relationship aspect ties into your work.
I was in a psychology 101 course in a community college, and I really didn't know what I wanted to do, and the teacher thought I should meet a social worker just to explore career options. And at that time, I really had no idea what I wanted to do, and met a social worker, and I thought it was a really cool job, and I like to talk. So I was like, this should be great. I'll be a therapist. I'll be a social worker. And kind of took off from there. And then I've worked in community health and nonprofits and for-profits, and kind of done a lot of different jobs, from therapist to private practice, and then got into leadership and been there now, longer than I want to admit. So I've been in leadership a long time.
Yeah. So from choosing a role that really is about the connection with people to then overseeing systems or just different operations about people, which is still all about people. That's the interesting thing about it.
Everything is connection with people. All the work that I do, whether I'm working with the Behavioral Health Administration or Colorado Access or our community partners, it's all relational work.
Well, and you mentioning them, Mike, really just highlights here at Community Reach Center, it really is about the people we serve. Everything we do, meetings that we have, just everything here is just all about that. And so reaching for wellness is an individual experience, but also at Community Reach Center, I can feel very confident in saying that it really is just centered on that experience for the consumers we serve.
Yeah, and for me, we give a good consumer experience when we support the staff. So a lot of my focus is in how do I support the staff who are supporting the consumers.
Yeah, that's great, Mike. Well, let's transition to a bit of the therapeutic relationship. I know you said you've been in leadership for quite some time, but I am well aware you've spent a good amount of time in that direct care practice. When someone is engaging in behavioral health services, usually that means some sort of professional relationship that's happening between a behavioral health provider and the client or consumer. And so there is a relationship that happens. Can you just talk me through what is that relationship that someone can expect to have with a provider? How does it start and how does it end? Yeah,
I mean, we could talk about the technical of the therapeutic alliance or the therapeutic relationship that kind of happens, and that's a space of trust that an individual will have with their therapist to be able to explore trauma or hard topics or substance misuse and different things, but that relationship kind of builds over time. I think a lot of people will come into therapy thinking I come in, I talk to somebody, and I leave, but it's two humans interacting, and there has to be some relational work that happens there. So a lot of times I've found, even in my own practice, just getting to know the person a little bit and letting them get to know me on a professional level of what my experience has been and what I could probably help support them with, if that's what they choose, has been really important. But just getting to know what kind of music do they like, what sports are they into, if they're into sports, what are different things and that interest them, kind of how you're talking about hobbies and those love-hate relationships.
Yes.
But what are things that we could tap into that they didn't realize maybe is a resource or a pro-social resource for them. So it's kind of taking the time to get to know them versus come in, build a treatment plan, identify goals, do your SMART objectives, and going through all that process. It's how do we become human together in the work.
Yeah, no, and that is essentially part of a recovery journey. Sometimes people being able to meet them where they are and engage in those conversations. And so when someone, let's say I'm in treatment and I'm making progress and I've made those connections, someone has asked me about those love loves or love hates, and we're getting progress and I'm getting better and I'm able to, I'm seeing progress and making progress towards goals. What happens to that relationship in treatment?
I do believe the relationship builds. So I could say on twofold. So there was early on in my career where I followed really strict professional boundaries, where it made me cold, and the relationship was really hard. So when we were getting towards treatment goal completion, like so, again, living in the very bedrock process, a lot of times it was like, okay, I think we're done with treatment. Okay, thank you, bye. And it was a very transactional piece versus when I became more real with the individuals and becoming human and kind of removing the I'm a therapist and I can't talk about things, finding how do I not relate with the clients, but how do I let them know that I'm empathetically listening to them and how I am there to support them. But as that relationship kind of grows and as we're kind of maybe getting closer to ending treatment, letting them know that it's okay to break up with me. It's okay to not want me. I've always told my clients, as it became a little more of a seasoned clinician and became more comfortable talking to folks, I told them my goal, because I always used to say, you come to the table with a goal, I'll come with a goal, and we'll meet in the middle. My goal is to have them put me out of business. I don't want to have to be their therapist because I want them to be able to navigate life with the skills that we've worked on together. And they would always laugh at that. They'd be like, no, always going to need a therapist. And I was like, no, the goal is to not need a therapist. The goal is to be, live your best life how you want to live it. And I used to tell them it's okay if we have 4 more sessions, but you really feel like right now is a good time to end. That's okay, and it doesn't hurt me. That means we're in a success. We're in a good place, and I always try to celebrate that with them. But I think being able to come to the table mutually with goals, because even as a therapist, and I know you have worked as a therapist here, so you have goals when you're working with somebody in treatment. You have things that you're working towards, whether it is how do I help them with automatic thoughts or how do I help them organize their goals so that they're a little more efficient in their life, or how do I help them abstain or stay away from trigger sources. Those are all goals that we have. Why is it not okay to talk about that? I always used to say it's okay to talk about the goals I have for the individual too after I get to know them a little bit.
Yeah, no, I love that. I bring a goal, you bring a goal. And I mean, Mike, you're mentioning something about someone being able to bring to the therapeutic space, like I think we're wrapping up or we're done, and that can feel scary for someone. That can feel like, whoa, how am I supposed to let go. But can you talk about what is the experience being able to really not need a therapist and to be able to recover and enter the world again in a way without probably that next therapy appointment?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's really, like you said, scary, right? So we kind of process that fear a little bit. I think the other piece of it is that we talk about that even though we're breaking up or we're not going to do therapy together anymore, doesn't mean that we're still not a resource. Doesn't mean that I might not call and check in 30 days and say, hey, are you doing okay still? What's been going on? How are things going? And it's not to say that they can't come back and say, I'm not ready. I thought I was, and I tried. I might challenge that a little bit because it might be their comfort level of, I just want to be in therapy and I want to have that Tuesday at 9 a.m. therapy session. So I might challenge that a bit, but I want to listen and be empathetic with them, and I want to make sure that they know that we're there or I'm there to support them. But I think, again, the fear of it is we talk so much about safe spaces, which I really do agree with. And for anyone who ever has sat in a NEO with me, a new employee orientation, they could hear me say, there's the safe space and then there's like the next 0.5, which is the brave space. So I'm always trying to create we're going to be brave because we're going to challenge some of those fears. So we're going to start bravery we're going to go 3 to 4 weeks without a session and see what that looks like and feels like for you if you're really challenging. And I've had clients who are like, nope, I'm ready and I'm ready to be on my own. And then I've had clients who are like, I have to see you every single day. And we start kind of creating that space. And then after we've done maybe 2 or 3, 4 week interval sessions, like, was it really that bad? Like, no, I'm good. And then they move on. And I'll say sometimes the overconfidence happens where they just don't even show up to the next appointment. I was like, good, they're done.
Yeah.
And that's okay. I don't take it, it's not for me. It's not something against me. And I think young therapists sometimes feel like, oh, they no-showed, it's because of me. Sometimes people no-show because they're just ready to be on their own. And breaking up is a hard part for them, and they don't want to go through the goodbyes. They just want to kind of say, all right, clean break and run. And that's okay too sometimes. We have to meet the person where they are, and that's sometimes not the same trajectory maybe that we're going for.
Well, and having been through some of those experiences as a therapist and having those ending conversations, or sometimes we were going to end, but then I did feel good. Yeah. Like, it's great to know when people are able to get to that space. And so it's something to be celebrated. Yeah. And so I think that's really the takeaway I'm hearing from you, Mike, is like, these are moments to be celebrated. Yeah. This is about someone's wellness and recovery. And, you know, as someone is reaching for their own wellness, they can look at Breakup with a Therapist, and that's not really always terminology used, but that's what it can feel like, absolutely. It can, that it's the beginning of something really beautiful for them.
And I think that's, again, it's not the term that's always used. Some call it transition, termination, ending. I think I've been in the field long enough that I've heard all the different ways systems have called it. But at the end of the day, it's just the person kind of living their life. And that's how I look at it for them, is they don't need me in their life anymore, and that's a good thing. That's what I want to see happen. So, like I said, my adage has always been I want to put myself out of business by not having clients to see, but I think for every one client that goes, another client will come, and it's the truth of it, but we're always going to be here to support. But I also feel that, unlike a breakup where you typically don't want to go back, I always tell them you could always come back at any point in time, because you never know when you're going to need support.
Absolutely, Mike. Well, I think you've said it perfectly there and really summed up what the message of this episode is, which is reaching for wellness can be entering a brave space in a therapeutic relationship, and it can be continuing that brave space in one's own self. So thank you so much, Mike, for being a part of this episode and talking us through it. Thank you so much for tuning in to this month's episode of Reach for Wellness. I hope you enjoyed it. If something resonated with you, please leave us a comment, DM us at Community Reach Center on Instagram, or follow us on our other social media platforms. If you enjoyed this episode, you're welcome to subscribe. We are on YouTube. We're also on Apple, Spotify, and your other favorite podcast platforms. We would love for you to tune into our next episode coming in March. More to come for you to hear about what we'll be talking about, but it will be an episode about how you can reach for wellness. Talk to you next time.